All right, so today we're diving into the world of Donald Trump. I mean,
Sure.
everybody knows the name. We've all seen the headlines. But today we're going beyond the soundbite
Yeah, beyond the headlines.
to really try to understand the man behind the persona.
It's fascinating. I mean, love him or hate him, there's no denying that Trump is like a larger-than-life character. But what kind of person is he really? What drives him?
That is exactly what we're going to try to explore today.
Yeah.
And to help us with this deep dive, we have David K. Johnston's book, The Making of Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Johnston is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist, so,
Hmm.
we're dealing with some
Yeah,
serious...
serious stuff.
Yeah, this is...
They're going to hear he's going deep.
He went deep, and he's really uncovered a lot of patterns of behavior that, make you think.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
What are some of the big themes that emerge from Johnston's book?
Well, right away, one of the things that I noticed was that intense focus on money and power.
Yeah.
It's almost like a driving force for Trump, even from a young age. Yeah, and that makes sense, right? I mean, when you think about it, he grew up in a world of wealth and privilege.
Yeah.
His father, Fred Trump Sr., was a real estate mogul, known for his, let's say, aggressive business tactics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Fred Sr. was all about the bottom line.
Yeah.
And, he instilled that in Donald. There's a story about how Fred Sr. used federal money that was intended for slum clearance
Oh, wow.
to take over a whole neighborhood in Brooklyn.
And then immediately jacked up the rents on all the businesses there, forcing many of them to close.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark example of putting profit above people. And it's a pattern that we see repeated throughout Donald's career.
Yeah, it's almost like a blueprint for how he operates in a way.
Right. And then there's this other story about Donald as a kid throwing rocks at babies in playpens.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might sound like just a childish prank, but it actually speaks to something a little bit deeper.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How so?
Well, even as a child, Trump was displaying this need to dominate, this need to assert his power over others. It's a theme that emerges again and again in his dealings with business rivals, political opponents.
So we're already seeing some interesting patterns emerge here. This focus on money and power.
Right.
This willingness to use aggressive tactics, maybe even a bit of a bully streak.
Yeah, you could say that. And those patterns become even more evident as we look at Trump's early business dealings.
Give me an example.
So there's the time that he bought a rundown apartment in Manhattan just to gain access to a prestigious club. He didn't even want to live there.
Oh, wow.
It was all about getting his foot in the door and being seen with the right people.
It's almost like he was playing a game, and the game was all about
Yeah.
climbing the social ladder and accumulating status.
Right. And he was willing to be pretty ruthless to get ahead. He learned a lot from his mentor, Roy Cohn.
Oh, Roy Cohn. Now, there's a character, infamous lawyer, known for his connections to the mob and his take-no-prisoners approach.
Yeah. Cohn instilled in Trump this attack and never settle philosophy that became a hallmark of his style. It's like he saw the world as a zero-sum game. For him to win, someone else had to lose.
And that's reflected in his business dealings, right?
Yeah.
Like the 1973 lawsuit against Trump for racial discrimination in housing.
That's right. The government alleged that Trump's company was systematically denying apartments to black applicants.
Oh, wow.
Trump fought the lawsuit tooth and nail and eventually settled but never admitted any wrongdoing.
Classic Cohn move, never back down, never apologize.
Right.
But it raises questions about his character, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And this pattern of deflecting blame and denying responsibility continues throughout his career.
All right, so we're starting to get a picture of who Donald Trump is. He's driven by money and power. He's willing to use aggressive tactics, and he's not afraid to bend the rules to get what he wants.
Yeah.
But what about this other side of him?
Yeah.
The showman, the media manipulator.
Oh, that's a whole other chapter. Trump is a master at crafting his own narrative and shaping public perception.
Right, remember all those pseudonyms he used?
Oh, yeah.
John Barron, John Miller.
Yeah.
Calling up journalists, planting stories about himself.
That's right.
Boasting about his business successes.
Yeah.
And his romantic conquests.
Yeah, constantly spinning, trying to create this aura of wealth and success and desirability. And he was incredibly effective at it.
And when the media scrutiny got too intense, he'd lash out, threaten lawsuits, or just flat out deny well-documented facts.
Yeah, it's a strategy that's worked remarkably well for him. It's hard to pin him down. It's hard to hold him accountable when he's constantly shifting the narrative.
Okay, so we've got this guy who's obsessed with money and power, who's willing to play dirty, who's a master manipulator.
Yeah.
What about his charitable giving? Is that part of the persona too?
Well, that's where things get really interesting Because on the surface, Trump presents himself as this generous philanthropist, someone who cares about giving back.
Oh, yeah. He certainly talks a big game about his charitable donations.
He does, but Johnston's reporting reveals a very different picture. There's this incident with Liberty House, a veterans charity.
Okay.
Trump pledged a large donation, then delayed payment, and tried to use the veterans as props at a campaign rally.
It's like he was more interested in the photo op than actually helping the veterans.
Exactly. And this wasn't an isolated incident. David Fahrenthold, another investigative journalist, did some digging and found that Trump's actual charitable giving was far less than he claimed.
So is it all just a facade? Is this philanthropy just another way to boost his image and manipulate public perception?
It's hard to say for sure, but the evidence suggests that Trump's motivations might not be as altruistic as he'd like us to believe.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've seen how Trump's early life and his family background shaped his worldview. We've seen how he operates in the business world, and we've glimpsed this mastery of media manipulation.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, yeah. We haven't even touched on his financial dealings, his bankruptcies, his approach to taxes, or his entry into the world of politics.
Oh, yeah?
So much more.
Stay tuned, because in part 2, we're going to delve even deeper into the making of Donald Trump.
That's right.
We'll uncover more patterns of behavior, more insights into his character, and maybe even some aha moments that make you see him in a whole new light.
This is where it gets really fascinating.
Yeah, buckle up.
Buckle up.
Welcome back. We're digging deeper into Donald Trump, and honestly, the more we learn, the more intriguing he becomes.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. You think you've got him figured out, and then there's like a whole other level of complexity.
Exactly. Last time we talked about his drive for money and power, his aggressive tactics, and his knack for media manipulation. But what about his actual business acumen? Is he really the self-made billionaire he claims to be?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because Johnston's book reveals a financial history that's far more turbulent and frankly chaotic than Trump's carefully crafted public image would suggest.
Oh, I love when the curtain gets pulled back.
Yeah.
Give me the details.
Okay, so let's rewind to the late 1980s, early 1990s. Trump was at the peak of his fame, boasting about being worth billions, plastering his name on everything from skyscrapers to airlines.
The Trump brand was everywhere.
Exactly. But behind this facade of wealth and success, there was a ticking time bomb. Trump had taken on massive amounts of debt, fueled by risky ventures and extravagant spending.
So it was all smoke and mirrors.
Not entirely. Trump was undeniably a skilled deal maker and a master of leveraging his brand.
Yeah.
But he also had this tendency to overreach, to take on more than he could handle.
And that's what led to his financial meltdown in 1990.
Exactly. By that point, Trump was drowning in debt, owing money to over 70 banks.
Wow.
He was facing multiple defaults, and bankruptcy loomed large.
Wow. So this was a real do-or-die moment for him.
Absolutely. But this is where it gets fascinating. The banks, recognizing that a Trump bankruptcy would be disastrous for everyone involved, agreed to a bailout.
Wait, so they just bailed him out, gave him a free pass?
Not exactly. They imposed strict conditions, they limited his spending, and forced him to relinquish control of some of his most prized assets. But it was a far cry from the total financial ruin that many predicted.
So he got a second chance, courtesy of the very institutions that he loves, to criticize classic Trump. But hold on, wasn't this just the first of many financial setbacks for him?
You're right. Trump has actually filed for corporate bankruptcy 4 times.
4 times.
Seriously.
Yeah, and these weren't small-time bankruptcies. We're talking major financial failures.
Wow.
Massive casinos going under, investors losing millions.
And yet, through it all, Trump managed to emerge relatively unscathed.
That's the thing about Trump. He seems to have this uncanny ability to deflect blame, to minimize his own losses, and to just bounce back from setback that would crush most other businessmen.
All right, so we've established that Trump's financial history is a bit more complicated than he lets on. But what about his taxes? We all remember the controversy surrounding his refusal to release his tax returns during the campaign. The tax return. It's like a peek into the inner workings of Trump's financial empire, and it's definitely revealing.
So what did Johnston uncover?
Well, one thing is that Trump is a master at exploiting loopholes and using the tax code to his advantage.
Creative accounting, you might say.
Exactly. And his 1984 tax returns are a prime example. According to Johnston, Trump paid absolutely 0 federal income tax that year.
0? As in nothing?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
It all comes down to depreciation. a complex accounting rule that allows real estate developers like Trump to claim massive deductions for the supposed decline in value of their properties.
Even if those properties are actually going up in value.
Exactly. It's a perfectly legal strategy, but it allows real estate moguls to offset their other income and dramatically reduce their tax liability.
So he's playing by the rules, but maybe not in the spirit of the rules.
It's a gray area for sure, and it raises questions about fairness and equity in the tax system.
All right, but it's not just about taxes, is it? There are other instances where Trump's business practices seem to cross the line from shrewd to shady, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. There's this incident with Bulgari, the luxury jewelry store, that really stands out.
Oh, yeah, I vaguely remember something about that. What was the deal again?
Well, Bulgari was running this scheme where they would ship empty boxes to customers to avoid paying sales tax.
Empty boxes. Seriously. That's sneaky.
Yeah, and Trump allegedly was one of their best customers using this scheme to avoid paying thousands of dollars in taxes on expensive jewelry purchases.
And when the whole thing was exposed, what did Trump do?
He cut a deal agreeing to testify against Bulgari in exchange for immunity from prosecution.
So he threw them under the bus to save his own skin.
Classic Trump.
But back to the tax returns for a second. There's something else that Johnston found that I found really strange, almost like something out of a spy novel.
You're talking about the mysterious case of the missing tax preparer.
It's exactly. Trump's longtime accountant, Jack Mitnick, was called to testify about those 1984 returns, and things got really weird.
Yeah, Mitnick claimed that he and his firm didn't prepare those returns, even though his signature was clearly on them.
Wait, so he's saying someone forged his signature?
That's the implication. But the court records offer no explanation for how Mitnick's signature ended up on those returns if he didn't prepare them.
It's just bizarre. It adds another layer of mystery to Trump's financial dealings.
And it leaves us with more questions than answers.
Okay, so we've seen Trump navigate the world of high finance, play fast and loose with the tax code, and even dabble in some questionable business practices. But he doesn't stop there. He sets his sights on luxury resorts, creating a whole new chapter in the saga of Trump.
From the sunny shores of Florida to the gleaming towers of Chicago, Trump takes his brand global. And as you might expect, there's plenty of drama, extravagance, and legal wrangling along the way.
All right, bring on the palm trees and the lawsuits. Let's dive into Trump's adventures in the world of luxury resorts. We left off with Trump setting his sights on the world of luxury resorts, and I've always been fascinated by these lavish playgrounds for the rich and famous.
Oh, yeah, they're a world unto themselves, a glimpse into a realm of excess and extravagance.
Exactly, and nobody embodies that excess quite like Donald Trump. So let's start with his crown jewel, Mar-a-Lago, that sprawling estate in Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, yeah, Mar-a-Lago, it's like a monument to Trump's ambition and his obsession with opulence. He bought this historic mansion that was once owned by a serial heiress and transformed it into this private club for the ultra-wealthy.
And it became his personal playground, right? The place where he hosted lavish parties, rubbed elbows with celebrities, and basically lived out his fantasy of being like a modern-day king.
Exactly. But even with Mar-a-Lago, we see those familiar patterns of behavior emerging. Trump purchased the property for a bargain price, but he took out a massive loan to finance the renovations.
So he was using debt to fuel his extravagant lifestyle, even while presenting himself as this self-made billionaire.
Right, and then there's that whole property tax saga. Trump ever. The savvy negotiator lowballed the value of Mar-a-Lago to local tax authorities, claiming that maintaining the estate was a financial burden.
He was essentially arguing that his opulent mansion was actually a money pit.
Exactly, and it worked. He managed to significantly reduce his property tax liability, saving himself millions of dollars.
It's like he's playing this game where he inflates his wealth when it suits him and then downplays it when it's financially advantageous.
It's a game he plays masterfully, and we see similar tactics at play with his other ventures, like the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago.
Oh yeah, that's a stunning building right on the Chicago River.
Yeah.
I've always been impressed by its sheer scale and ambition.
Oh, it's a testament to Trump's ability to think big and to attract investors with his grand vision. But even with this project, there were these discrepancies, inconsistencies that raise questions about his business practices.
Like what?
Well, Johnston points out this strange discrepancy in how Trump valued the retail space in the tower. In court documents, his lawyers claimed that the space was unleasable and essentially worthless. But then, in marketing materials, it was touted as like this prime investment opportunity.
So which was it? Worthless or a prime investment?
It seems like Trump was presenting different versions of reality depending on who he was talking to and what he wanted to achieve.
Again, we see this pattern of adapting his narrative to suit his needs at any given moment.
Exactly. And then there's the Trump Ocean Resort in Baja, Mexico. This project was a complete disaster, leaving hundreds of buyers high and dry.
What happened there?
Well, Trump plastered his name and image all over the marketing materials, giving buyers the impression that this was a legitimate Trump development.
So people thought they were buying into the Trump brand, the Trump guarantee of quality and success?
Exactly, but in reality, it was just a licensing deal. Trump had little to no involvement in the actual construction or management of the project.
So when the project inevitably went belly up,
Hmm.
what did Trump do?
Well, he claimed that he had no liability, arguing that his name was simply a brand being licensed to other developers.
So he was like, hey, I just sold them my name. It's not my fault if they messed up.
Yeah, it's a tactic he's used repeatedly. Slap his name on a project rake in the licensing fees and then wash his hands of any responsibility when things go south.
It's a pretty cynical way to do business, leaving countless investors and buyers holding the bag.
It certainly raises questions about his ethical boundaries and his willingness to exploit his brand for personal gain.
Okay, so we've seen Trump navigate the world of high finance, play fast and loose with the tax code, and even dabble in some questionable business practices when it comes to luxury resorts. Now let's shift gears and talk about Atlantic City. I remember the buzz when Trump entered the casino scene. It was like he was bringing a touch of Las Vegas glitz to the East Coast.
Yeah, it was a bold move for sure.
Uh,
Atlantic City was already a well-established gambling destination, but Trump saw an opportunity to create something bigger, bolder, more extravagant.
He envisioned himself as a casino king, attracting the wealthiest gamblers and turning Atlantic City into a playground for the elite.
Exactly, and he poured millions into building these opulent casinos, each one trying to outdo the last in terms of sheer size and lavishness. The Trump Taj Mahal was his crown jewel, this billion-dollar palace of gambling and entertainment.
Yeah, he called it the eighth wonder of the world.
Classic Trump hyperbole. But behind the glitz and the glamour, there were signs of trouble brewing. Trump's casinos were plagued by financial mismanagement, and his obsession with attracting high rollers would ultimately backfire.
It's like he got caught up in this world of high-stakes gambling, the allure of easy money and the thrill of the deal.
Exactly, and he surrounded himself with individuals who enabled his risky behavior, like John Cody, the mob-connected Teamsters leader.
So even in the casino world, those questionable associations continued.
Right, and then there's the story of Bob the Monster, a high roller known for his outrageous behavior and his abusive treatment of casino staff.
But Trump tolerated his antics because he was a big spender.
Exactly. Trump was so fixated on attracting these whales, these high rollers who could drop millions at the baccarat tables, that he overlooked their flaws, their character, even their potential criminal connections.
It's a pattern we've seen before, profit over principle.
Right, and ultimately Trump's lack of experience in the casino industry combined with his risky financial strategies led to his downfall in Atlantic City. His casinos were saddled with debt revenues decline, and he was forced to file for corporate bankruptcy multiple times.
So even the self-proclaimed king of casinos couldn't escape the consequences of his own actions.
It's a cautionary tale, isn't it? A reminder that even the most flamboyant, charismatic, and seemingly invincible figures can be brought down by their own flaws and bad decisions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the making of Donald Trump, what are the key takeaways? What have we learned about the man behind the myth?
Well, we've seen a man driven by an insatiable thirst for wealth and power, a man willing to bend or break the rules to get what he wants. He's a master manipulator, a skilled negotiator, and a showman who thrives on attention.
But we've also seen a man with a history of questionable business practices, shady associations, and a tendency to leave a trail of broken promises and financial wreckage in his wake.
It's a complex and often contradictory picture, one that defies easy categorization.
Yeah, and it leaves us with more questions than answers.
It does, but perhaps that's the point of a deep dive like this. To go beyond the surface, to challenge our assumptions, and to grapple with the complexities of a truly enigmatic figure.
It's been a fascinating journey, to say the least.
Indeed, and it makes you wonder, what's next for Donald Trump? What will his legacy be? Only time will tell.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Donald Trump. We hope you found it enlightening, provocative, and maybe even a little bit unsettling. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep digging deeper.